Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Side to Side Sportscast, where it's your boys, Will, Woody, and CJ, and our man behind the scenes who make it all possible, Stag. We come to break it all down from the court side, the ring side, the sidelines, and for them sports they play outdoors, we outside. It's the Side to Side Sportscast. That's how we ride. And today we got a special guest with us. It's Boston's own Tim McKone. He'll be joining us to really talk about the Thursday night football game and some other Week 11 notable matchups. He'll tell you a little bit about his career as a broadcaster and some of the most memorable moments in his sports career. But first, let's talk some fantasy football. You know, we halfway through the season. Who knows if your team's tanking, if your team's sailing. But let's talk about this week, because this is the most important time of the year in fantasy football, where you got to be on the waiver wire. If you're doing an auction draft, you got to bid smart. If you're doing the traditional waiver wire order, you got to have that guy in there. So let's talk about who we starting this week and who are we sitting. CJ, who are you starting this week?
You guys are going to love my answer right now. You guys are going to love this because it's a total homer pick, but I'm going Mac Jones. I'm going with the Mac attack this week. All right? Because listen,
could have guessed that.
I know, right?
I mean, listen, this is the first week where I'm actually confident in saying that. Okay. Atlanta, we all know, passing defense, nothing spectacular out there. Mac Jones coming off a 3 TD performance. I expect a replica game of that at the least, right? I expect him to eclipse 300 yards against that defense. Their run game has actually been much better than I anticipated. Even when you had Damian Harris go down, Ramondre Stevenson came in and tore it up last week. 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Even when they're depleted, they're still looking okay and catching the ball, those backs. So they're doing the job for Mac Jones. He's got Hunter Henry, who's catching a touchdown a week, got that big target in there. So they still lack that deep ball threat. That is a big gap in the offense. But Mac Jones is making it work. We saw a couple dimes last week, and I anticipate him showing a little more of that this week.
Not a bad pick. Mac Jones, when you said you were going to take a homer pick, I actually thought your homer pick was going to be my pick, Ramondre Stevenson. Now, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the year, I said when we get halfway through the season, this big boy is going to be getting the carries in New England, right? And we are at that point right now. Just like you said, he had 20 carries last week, 100 yards. The Patriots are on fire, and Bill Belichick does not abandon the run. I really think that this is a big week for Ramondre. If they can get up big on the Falcons, as we've seen teams do, 43-3, baby. Ramondre could get a lot of carries this week. I would actually, to me, he's a must start. Grab him and start him.
You want to talk about must start? I'm going to talk about a team where I was starting Raheem Mostert, a team that has been so decimated by injury. Miles Sanders, Saquon Barkley, just scrub after scrub after scrub. And I have none of their handcuffs, right? I actually had Gainwell. I drafted Gainwell. Had him chill on my bench. After 3 weeks, I dropped him, right? I picked up Damian Williams. He wasn't good. Dropped him. But then he started getting good again, so I picked him back up. Khalil Herbert took over. Just never was having luck plugging and playing those running backs. And I was getting clowned. Because for the last 3 weeks, I was actually starting this guy. And everyone was like, wow, your team must be that bad. And it was. But maybe things are on the rise because Saquon Barkley is coming back. And this man, A.J. Dillon, is now the bell cow for the Green Bay Packers. So I am cooking, and I think I am cooking with gas because that boy, That boy will be balling, boy. I'm telling you, he is mustard. You want to talk about mustard? I actually cannot name confidently 5 running backs that I'd rather start than AJ Dillon this week.
Wow, what a bold statement. But you know what? I'm liking that because that is a really good pick. The timing couldn't be any better. And hey, the Packers, they've been running the football. So AJ Dillon, you heard it from your man Woody, is a must start. And he can't name 5 running backs that he'd rather start over AJ Dillon. You know, if you put me to the test, I would definitely find 5 running backs, but you know, we're not going to do that.
We could try it. We can try it. I mean, Aaron
right,
Jones.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Hold on. Where would you put Aaron Jones on a random week?
On a random week?
Not top 5.
Yeah, I don't know if he's in my top 5. You know, right now, obviously Christian McCaffrey's back. You gotta start him. He came back. They won. That you got to start Christian McCaffrey. You got to start Zeke because regardless of yards, he is getting touchdowns, right? You got to start Zeke, right?
Okay.
So we got Christian McCaffrey. We got Zeke. We got, well, I made the dummy mistake last week and I started Nick Chubb. It was one of those things where I should have did my lineup. I should have did my lineup on like Thursday or Friday or Saturday, but I waited until Sunday. It got tied up in the morning. You know, your boy be in church and everything like that. And then I was like, oh, snap, fantasy football. And it was too late to take Nick Chubb out. I messed up. But Kareem Hunt starting.
I was going to say, let me just count this out really quick.
Kareem Hunt is on IR, so he's not.
Right. He's supposed to be coming back this week.
We got McCaffrey, we got Dalvin Cook, we got Alvin Kamara, you got Zeke, and I don't know about you.
If Alvin's playing.
We don't know if Alvin's playing. This might be a Mark Ingram week. Who is another guy that you can add to your stardom list? Mark Ingram. He's playing against the Eagles.
And Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you're not Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor is probably the first back you should name.
Yeah.
All right. So who am I going to accept?
Nonetheless, AJ Dillon is still a good must start.
Yes, absolutely.
Still a good must start.
I'm telling you, McCaffrey. Who else? I'm accepting Zeke. I'll accept Cook, and I'll accept Jonathan Taylor.
You won't accept Joe Mixon?
I'm not accepting Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon's on fire right now. Fire.
That's because he's on your team. He's good.
Oh man, come on.
He's good.
I'm not going to the stats this early in the show. I'm not going to the stats this early in the show. Don't make me do it. I'm not doing it. Okay.
I'm going AJ. I'm going AJ.
Hey, I might even take Austin Eckler over AJ. But at the same time, not trying to rain on your picnic. Okay, AJ Dillon, good start. That's a good must start. Right now. Who needs to sit their butt down? I'll tell you who needs to sit down because I messed up, man. You know, I took a gamble in my fantasy football draft and I waited on the quarterback because I felt good about 2 people. One of them I was wrong about, but one of them I was right about. So my last 2 picks was Joe Burrow and Jameis Winston. Obviously, Jameis did not work out, but Joe Burrow has been thorough. He's been killing it, right? So the rest of my lineup is pretty stacked, and he's my quarterback. He was on a bye week last week, but the week before last, I wanted to start someone. I was going to start Carson Wentz against the Jets, but something told me not to do it. And then I watched him decimate the Jets, and I was like, dang, I could have used him. And Joe Burrow didn't have a good game last week. And last week, Joe Burrow was on a bye week, so I started Carson, right? They're playing against the Jags. Carson was trash, and Carson's going to be trash again this week because he just pretty much is not a reliable quarterback. They play at Buffalo. If you need a bye week replacement and Carson Wentz was the guy you had to plug in, I'm telling you to sit his butt down. That is not the quarterback you want playing in Buffalo, who now has a division competition, a real competition with the Patriots. So they're going pedal to the metal for the rest of the year, and this could be a real bad day for Carson Wentz. So I'm sitting Carson's butt down.
I would agree with that. I don't know if he torched the Jets as much as like the running backs, like had 211 yards before contact. But I'm not even going to defend the Jets because if you don't pick up Carson, I would actually James Woody is actually telling you should probably pick up Tua instead and start him because he's facing the Jets. No, I promise you, the Jets have 3 takeaways all year, okay? And they literally haven't had one in I can't even remember the last game. I actually do remember the exact moment. It was against the Bengals. It was like the game-winning one. But besides that, right, they rarely get takeaways, and I don't even want to tell you the average amount of points per game they've been letting up the last 4 weeks. So I would say I feel pretty confident that Tua is not going to throw a pick and that points will be on the board. Whether that's scored by Tua or by, Myles Gaskin or, one of those guys, I guess time will tell. But it's definitely a safer bet than Carson Wentz. Now, let me tell you someone who's not a safe bet. And people think he is. Yahoo will tell you he is, but Yahoo lies. Woody does not. So let me tell you something right now, okay? Because we know his teammates are gone. Everyone's dropping like flies. So now Brian Edwards is supposed to be the sheriff in town. And now he just had a performance on Monday Night Football, 88 yards. Woo-hoo! 88 yards. He on the come up, man. He on the come up. The thing is, he was targeted 4 times out of Derek Carr's 35 dropbacks. This man is not featured in the game plan. Yes, he had some big plays, but if you go and look at the game plan, look at his involvement, the man gets targeted like 1.7 times per game. He is not someone to count on. Your better bet is like Hunter Renfrow, right? If you really want to pick a Raider, but I would probably steer clear of that organization in terms of fantasy. That's just my opinion.
Well, listen, you like Tua. I don't like Tua. I actually he wasn't my number one sit-em. My number one sit-em's coming up, but I'm gonna just because he was on my radar as far as sit-em. It feels like a trap game to me. It just feels that way just because of what you were saying, right? Like the Jets have not, and this is coming from the Woody who a week ago was hot on the Jets. That Mosley-led defense is going to dominate, right? You might be right this week, right? Like, I mean, the Dolphins are not scaring anybody. They've got a few good receivers, few good guys, Waddle, Parker. If Parker's going to play, we don't know. He's like constantly week to week with this guy. So Tua, I can't get behind him having a big game right now. I feel like it's a trap game. People want to play him this week, favorable matchup. I don't like it. But the one who overtook that for me was Ben Roethlisberger. I do not like this game for Big Ben. I think, and here's the reason, not because I don't think Big Ben is going to, turn the ball over a bunch. I just think it's going to be run heavy. I think you're going to see a lot out of Najee Harris. Chargers have a pretty solid secondary out there. Harris going to have to run the ball and stuff it down their throat. So I don't see a lot of big numbers coming out of Roethlisberger. I'm sitting Roethlisberger and going to pick up somebody like maybe a Mac Jones on the waiver wire if he's out there.
Man, I know what I'm getting you for Christmas, man. A Mac Jones bobblehead, man.
Let's go.
Mac Jones bobblehead. Another quarterback that I would sit this week because last week he finally came back. So those of you who drafted him somewhere in the mid rounds, he was your quarterback, and you expected him to have a really good year. Then he got injured, and you sat him down. And Woody, you know who I'm about to say, right? So he was hurt for a few weeks, and you probably were picking up people like Carson Wentz, like I did, right? And you're scrambling for whoever else. And Russell Wilson, he came back last week against the Packers, and I'm sure a lot of people rushed him into your starting lineup. Russ is back, but it ain't look good at all, man. I don't know if that finger is still bothering him, but it was a rough game. Could have just been knocking the rust off, but I would wait a week because this is that time in fantasy football where you can't afford to lose, and you might not want to start Russell Wilson. But you know what? You know who we should start? I'm sorry about that. It's Tim.
Oh, we got him.
Okay. My mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, our first ever guest is literally in the waiting room and about to join us. So I think I jumped the gun just a little bit early, right? But we're gonna wait until I get the green light. Is the light green?
Oh, all right. We're waiting for him still. He's still getting his stuff together.
All right,
All
no
right.
problem at all. Now, outside of starting them and sitting them, right? Does anybody out there, any of our viewers, if you have a roster situation where my guy David Dysert last week actually said, who should I start? I got 4 receivers and I need to pick 3 of them between CeeDee Lamb, Deontay Johnson, Justin Jefferson, and Devontae Adams, right? If you have a situation like that and you want us to talk about it, go ahead, hit the chat. Stag will bring it up and we'll give you our 2 cents on it, right? But CJ, Woody, what types of rosters decisions on your teams do you have coming up this week?
I got a good one for you, and I actually would love to field the crowd. If there's anybody out there, 1 or 2 viewers or anything, just give me the opinion, because frankly, I am at a standstill. I'm a standstill right now. Now I can play at my tight end position, Hunter Henry or Dawson Knox.
Ooh.
I played Dawson Knox last week, coming off the broken hand injury. Figured he'd still be involved in the game plan. Early on, he caught a ball for 17 yards early on in the game. I was like, all right, there he is. Here we go. He's going to be, we're going to be flowing. And that was it. That's all he produced for me. Then I come and watch Hunter Henry pop up 2 touchdowns. I just, I can't, much like Woody, it's the tight end position for me that is baffling. So I don't know who to play, Hunter Henry or Dawson Knox this week.
I know exactly who to play. And you are, a homer. I guess, we all kind of are homers in our own way a little bit. But the right play here, and I actually personally don't think it's close, is Hunter Henry. No doubt about it. Mac Jones is in his groove. Okay? You know what I mean? Like the Patriots, and I was going to talk about this a little bit, for the, Thursday night, but, the Patriots are on a scoring tear. Like they're on an underrated scoring tear right now. And Hunter Henry is a big part of that. I mean, he's scored a TD in 5 of the last 6 games. The man is balling. He was always the more athletic tight end acquisition. What I was nervous about was his health, but he's remained healthy and has clearly taken the lion's share from Jonnu Smith. So there's nothing to worry about over there. Whereas with the Bills, I mean, Dawson Knox was definitely a steady, reliable target for Josh Allen, but there's a lot more uncertainty there. I mean, Sanders is going off, then Diggs finally wants to show up last week. There's a lot of uncertainty, but as you already know, being a Pats fan, there's what you see a lot of times is what you get. They are consistent week in, week out. They are in a groove. I don't think Hunter Henry is going anywhere in the fantasy tight end discussion.
Well, that's a good point, man. And I'm someone who drafted Jonnu Smith, expecting Jonnu to really take this job and like light it up. But you had to know that it was going to be either or. One of these guys was going to step up and have it figured out by midseason. And that guy is absolutely Hunter Henry. Great fit for the New England Patriots. And a rookie quarterback's best friend is a reliable tight end. And I definitely would start that. Like Woody said, the Bills have a lot more weapons. You never know who's going to go off. You never know what type of style they're going to play. The Bills switch it up on a weekly basis. I wouldn't trust Dawson Knox. If I had the option to start those 2, I'm going with Hunter because I think he's hit his stride, and him and Mac Jones are in a rhythm right now.
I want to point out too that before his injury, Dawson Knox was the number 3 ranked tight end.
Oh no, absolutely. He was killing. He was killing, right? But see, once you get injured, man, it's like I gotta see it to believe it. Like like in fantasy football, when you get hurt, I need to see you light it up. Even if you light it up on my bench, before I feel comfortable just putting you right back out there, unless I absolutely have to, I need to see it. It really, it really depends. But I want your fellas' feedback on this.
I appreciate that advice, boys. Appreciate that.
I want y'all advice because I got DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre's been questionable every single week, right? Every week he's been questionable. He just did not play. And last week, I had to pick between Rashad Bateman and Jared Jeudy, right? Now, obviously, I put Jeudy in there. Judy's on a bye week, right? But I still got to replace DeAndre because I'm not sure if by Sunday he's going to be taking the field. And my wide receivers, obviously, CeeDee Lamb, he's going to play. He's questionable, but he's definitely going to play, right? DeAndre Hopkins. I got Chase Claypool, who's also questionable. Jared Jeudy's on a bye. And then I got Rashad Bateman. I know I'm playing Lamb. I know I'm playing Bateman. But Chase Claypool is the question mark because I kind of agree with what you were saying earlier, CJ. I think that Steelers-Chargers game is going to be like old school, low scoring, 16-10 final score. Is going to be another slugfest. And Chase Claypool's questionable. He might play, but I'm wondering because my two tight ends are Gesicki, who trashed last week, right? But he's been really good outside of last week. And Dalton Schultz, who started off hot, recently he's been laying low, but the Chiefs' defense is suspect, and I think this might be a Dalton Schultz week. So am I starting Dalton Schultz as my flex, or am I rolling the dice on Chase Claypool? That's my predicament. Or should I hit the free agency wire, for somebody else? Because I'll tell you what, if I could get Ramondre Stevenson or AJ Dillon, I'm not hiding to get those guys.
Bateman's in, right? Bateman's in. All right. I need to make sure that was. I mean, I'm staying away from Claypool this week. I see that just being a grinded out game. I said earlier in the show, in the first segment, it's just. I don't see a lot of passing yards coming out of Roethlisberger's hand. I think he's going to be held to under 250, maybe even under 200 that game. And Harris is going to be just a bell cow, 25 attempts, trying to rip it through the ground. So that's my advice for you. Not saying it's going to be right because maybe it's a shootout and Claypool starts getting the ball aired out to him, but my feeling is stay away from the receivers and the passing game of that Steelers team this week.
There's no way I would tell anyone, not my mother or my worst enemy, to start Dalton Schultz this week. Because that boy is on a slump. And not only is it on a slump, but Gallup is back, man. I mean, how can you have any confidence, in I'm not saying Will, I'm saying, in general, how can someone have confidence in starting Dalton Schultz in a league that they're trying to win? I just can't do it. I don't love Claypool either, though. That's not me saying choose Claypool. That's me saying you need to scrounge.
You might have some waiver wires. I'm not saying
scour the waiver wire
for the record. Yeah, I'm not saying start Schultz.
If there's somebody there that you can grab, because those two, we might have to screen share Gaddy's waiver wire and see what we can scrounge up.
Man, the Cowboys fan in me wants to fight you right now, but I'm not going to do that. You know why? Because it is officially time for us to introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, not yet. Not yet. All right.
I think we are good now. I think we're good. The eyes have been dotted. Oh, there he is.
There he is. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Boston's own Tim McKone, side to side with your boys right now. What up, Tim?
I apologize. I'm running like a laptop from like 2011, so it took me a little longer to get onto the app. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, thanks for coming to the show, and it is all good, man. I have to ask you a question. In your lifetime, does anybody refer to you as T-Mac?
I don't think so. Surprisingly, I have a lot of weird nicknames that I won't
Yeah?
repeat here, but yeah, T-Mac isn't one of them.
Well,
Actually,
look, man, when I see the first initial T and then the MC,
yeah.
side to side with it, I don't know if you mind, but you're T-Mac here. We ain't talking about
it's
faces.
crazy too because I played my game above the rim, similar to T-Mac.
Oh, okay. Above the rim. That's what I like to hear. Right?
Before the knee injury.
Exactly.
Well, welcome to the Side Sportscast, ladies and gentlemen. Tim, if you don't mind, if you could just tell our viewers just a little bit about, your professional career in sports.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am at 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston, which for those that aren't in Boston, we do the Celtics, Patriots, Bruins games, Revs. I'm contractually obligated to throw that in as well. And then obviously Zolak and Bertrand from 10 to 2 and Felger and Maz from 2 to 6 are big shows along with Toucher and Rich and then Adam Jones at night. And then I was at NBC 10 in Providence for 5 years there. Actually just wrapped up there, but was doing college basketball on the Patriots there for a long time too. So that was great. And from Worcester originally. Got my start in Worcester at WTAG, which is a small radio station there, doing intermission reports for the Worcester Sharks. They relocated like 6 months after I got that job, which tells you how good I was at doing radio for a hockey team. And then I was at a TV station in Worcester too, so that's where I got my start, both in radio and TV, and then was lucky enough to move up, and that's where I'm at right now. Loving it. It's great.
And Felger knows your name now, right?
It's very
still up in the air. Still up in the air. If you gave him the ABCD, you might be able to pick it up.
In his own world. No. Me and Felger. Felger's a great guy. That's like the number one question I get asked all the time. It's like, what are Felger and Maz like off the air? Felger's the best. Maz is great. All those guys are the exact opposite of what you'd think they'd actually be like off the air. So no, it's a great spot to work, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're lucky to have you on with us. And I just have a curious question. So throughout your career covering sports, what would you say is probably your most memorable sports moment? And what was it like to cover it on a radio afterwards?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say my most, I've had so many moments, both good and bad throughout my career that I remember. I'm a huge college basketball guy. That's my favorite sport.
Okay.
And a diehard UConn fan. So I've met Jim Calhoun now 2 or 3 times. That's my guy.
Awesome.
So whenever I got to do a story with him, that was kind of surreal. And then, whether it's doing post game for like a big game, big Patriots game, or a big Celtics game we were on during the Celtics run a few years ago when they lost in Game 7 of the Cavs. So what was that, 2018, right?
Yeah,
2018. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of fun. Just kind of being in the mix and being able to give your opinion right off the bat and kind of take that feedback from callers pretty much immediately is always a great time. And then, in the field, whether it was covering the Patriots and seeing Tom Brady up close and personal, and kind of fangirling out in front of him, or doing some of the college basketball stuff and kind of building relationships with guys too, that like at first, whether it's an Ed Cooley or someone like that, where you're like, oh, I recognize this guy from TV. And then all of a sudden, you're doing a show with him, is pretty cool. It's been pretty fun.
So here we'll ping that off. Like what was the most, what was the worst memory or the most embarrassing? Cause I know you recorded that 6:40 time, so I didn't know if that was the most or if you had anything else,
That was the shoes, by the way. That was the shoes. That was not my,
you didn't have the turfs, man. You didn't come prepared.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you guys a funny story. So like I said, the first time I ever did TV was at a small station in Worcester, and it was 2013, and Brad Stevens just got hired as the head coach.
Your guy.
Celtics. Yeah, it was my guy. Like I said, I'm a diehard college basketball fan, so I love UConn, and then I love those Butler teams. Obviously, like Gordon Hayward and Matt Howard and all those guys. But even after that, like Rodney Clark was this like transferred in and just gunned it from like 40 feet, like a poor man's Jimmer Fredette. I thought he was the best. And so I fangirled out on Brad Stevens. He's my favorite coach by far. And he gets hired as a Celtics coach, which nobody saw. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that completely off the board hire.
That came out of nowhere.
And so I get an email from the Celtics, and they're like, hey, we're going to do interviews with the new head coach. If you want to come down and do one, we can get you in. And at the time, I just started. I'd never done like I'd never interviewed a big time professional athlete or coach. Like all my stuff was either high school, like AHL, like minor league stuff. This was my first like professional thing. And it was Brad Stevens, like my second favorite coach in college basketball. And I'm like 23. And I stayed up like all night, like a nerd, prepping for this one-on-one. And the questions I was asking, like in my mind, I thought I was going to like leave the interview as like Brad Stevens' best friend. Like we were going to get dinner like once a month after that. He was going to be so impressed by like what I was doing. Like best case scenario, I'm an assistant on the Celtics like next year. I'm going to be like, I'm going to be the Woj of the Celtics and he's going to be feeding me information nonstop. And so I stay up all night. And like the questions I was asking is more to like show off that I knew bad. I was like, remember in like the second half of like 1607 of the championship against UConn when like Matt Howard hedged on that ball screen? Like, you gonna do that with the Celtics? Like, what? Like, who is this kid? And so I get there, and first of all, like ESPN has this gorgeous set. NBC Sports Boston has this beautiful set. I'm one-man banding, which means like I'm running the camera myself. I'm like coming in with like the tripod camera, like drenched in sweat. They like stuff me in the corner of the practice facility. He finally gets to me after like an hour and a half, and I'm like, I have my notepad ready. I'm ready to go, and I hit record on the camera, and I forgot a chip to record on. So like there was nothing to. The camera just wasn't like there was nothing. That was it. Like there was nothing to record. I was so embarrassing, and I didn't want to be like in front of the Celtics head coach and Brad Stevens and be like, by the way, like the camera's not going to work. So I just interviewed him for 15 minutes, knowing the whole time like nothing was being recorded. I get out of the interview. My boss was like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was good, but we didn't get any of that whatsoever."
I hope Brad hears that story.
I know that was tough. That was tough. So that was my most embarrassing moment. That was brutal. That was tough. Yeah. Stevens, do not go to dinner. Surprisingly, that relationship never took off the way.
No dinners with Brad Stevenson.
Yeah, tough.
He's the president of basketball operations out there now. So
I know
if you get a second shot, the head coaching job might be just a little bit more stressful. So maybe he has some room for your boy T-Mac, man.
I'll tell you what, whether it was the head coach of the Celtics or even Danny Ainge's job, those are jobs that I would not want. That's for sure.
Oh.
It's a no-win situation on both of those fronts. Yeah.
Now, as a sports fan, right? Obviously, you're locked into Boston, and you got some contractual obligations. So we totally
get that. Yes, yeah. We need to mention the Revs at least 3 times in this interview. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you got that out there. Shout out to the Reds, right? Now, where do you rank your sports? Like, as in what you like most? I know you say college basketball is number 1, but out of the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, what's your order?
So it's funny. I like back in the day, like when we were in high school and college. So this was like, I don't know, 10 years ago. I could have talked Red Sox all day. I nerded out on it. And like when I first got into sports talk radio, the big talker in Boston all the time was like the Red Sox. And it was, you talk about the game before, and then it was like, what's Manny doing? And then what are we doing at the trade deadline? And it was like rinse and repeat. And like every day, I remember landscaping in the summer when I first was like, you know what, maybe that's what I want to do. That's all the talk was for like 8 hours. I would just be landscaping, listening to Red Sox talk. And now 10 minutes in, I want to blow my brains out. I can't do it. It does nothing for me anymore. So for me, it's the Pats by a mile.
Okay.
And then it's the Celtics, number 2. And then probably the Red Sox and Bruins 3 and 4 for me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of your Patriots, right? And CJ's cheesing over here.
I got my reinforcements in, boys. Watch out.
The Patriots are on fire. Now, Tim, I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan
I like it.
Born and raised right outside of Philadelphia. That's another story. Not for right now, though. Right. But I've been a Cowboys fan all my life. And when we beat you guys, and I'm not saying this to rub it in, on this sportscast, I said, listen, the Patriots are dangerous. We beat them, but I don't feel like they feel defeated. They're going to go on a winning streak, right? I called it. And now they're 6-4. They're in competition. You know, the winning the division is a real conversation. They got the Falcons up this week. And, you know, you never want to call a shot too early, but the Falcons may have gotten the whole life and rest of the season beaten out of them last week, right? And now it's time to play the Patriots. I don't know if this Falcons team has that type of fight where they can say, hey, let's brush that off. Let's go knock these Patriots off. But they might. We're about to learn about them. But, fellas, what do you think about this Thursday night game coming up between the Patriots and the Falcons?
These boys were laughing at me, Tim. These boys were laughing at me at the beginning of the season when I said the Pats could be over 500 and maybe sneak into the wild card. I'm just going to start with that and let my guy Tim take it over and just give his opinion here.
Yeah, look, I was kind of with you in terms of their ceiling. I'm a Brady guy, so I've been hammering the Pats for the last year and a half. But over the last 3 weeks, I mean, honestly, maybe you're right. It probably goes back to really that Bucs game and then the Cowboys game, where it seems like they've kind of turned a corner and they're winning games the way that New England fans are kind of used to it, right? And that's like with the defense and then controlling the ball on offense. The running game's really good. I think the biggest difference, too, when you look at it, is that they finally hit in the draft. The drafts have been brutal for the Patriots. Absolutely brutal. And CJ knows as a Patriots fan, too, like, the running joke, I've never seen a team take a second-round pick where then ESPN had to cut away because they were like, we actually don't have highlights of Tavon Wilson. Like, what? This second round, it's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you hit on Mac Jones, who looks like the future. Christian Barmore, who's their second-round pick out of Alabama, is absolutely wrecking games on defense. Him and Matt Judon have been an absolute terror up front. And then Stevenson, the running back, all of a sudden – he looks like the real deal at running back too. So all of a sudden you're bringing a draft class like that. You bring in a free agency class where there were definitely some misses. Jonnu Smith, I'm looking at you, right? Hunter Henry's been a beast in the red zone. And then Matthew Judon, honestly, has been one of, if not the best defender in football this year. He's been a beast too. So yeah, I think they've turned a corner. They're going to be a playoff team. I think it'd be wildly disappointing at this point if they aren't. And it's going to be interesting down the stretch because you have this Falcons game coming up. Then you have a mini bye, and then they actually have their regular bye coming up after that too. So they're positioned well here. They still have Buffalo twice. I think the AFC East is on the table for this team too. I'm buying in, and I was not the guy that was pro Patriots coming into this year at all. So no, I'm in. I think they're going to be a real threat in the AFC for sure.
No, and you forgot too, Damian Harris, part of that draft class. I mean, him and Stevenson. You know, we forget he's got 7 touchdowns this year. So yeah, no, it's crazy. And you know it's interesting too because like you go back to Harris and you know he comes in, he kind of red shirts, and outside of Sony Michel, that's kind of been the game plan for all these running backs. You go James White, Shane Vereen, you go down the list of guys that they've drafted in the past, and Damian Harris was a guy that they kind of red shirted too. Stevenson stepped up. Fumbles week 1. See ya. We don't see him for 3 weeks, and now he's come back in. He's been an impact guy here. So it's going to be interesting to see down the stretch. But, yeah, it looks like they have some pieces on offense. Feels like they still need one more. I was one of the few guys in Boston that really wanted Odell Beckham to come to New England. Not a lot of my coworkers at 98.5 were on board with that. I would have thought that would have been fantastic. But obviously he goes to the Rams. So, yeah, still feels like they might be 1 or 2 pieces short here. Would have liked to see Stephon Gilmore work it out here as well. But, yeah, I think they're going to be at least a tough out in the playoffs. Not a team that you want to play. That's for sure. No doubt.
Hey, I agree with that. This might be some of the best coaching we've seen from Bill Belichick since that first season with Tom Brady. Now I want to correct CJ because CJ called me and Woody out and said we were laughing at him when he said they may be a borderline playoff team. We didn't laugh at him for that. I have to tell you, Tim, why we laughed at him, right? We were talking about free agency, right? And back in the day, this brother named Julio Jones was on the trading block, right? And we were talking about possible destinations, right? And CJ came on this show and said, so if the Patriots acquire Julio Jones, you'd have to put them in maybe the top 2 or 3 teams to make it to the Super Bowl. And then,
whoa. We can roll the tape back.
Yeah,
That's
we can definitely
exactly
roll
what
the
happened.
tape back.
That's what
Because you said, and then my response to you was, what do you think? Julio is like Thor's hammer, or you just going to acquire Julio Jones and then just go run wreck havoc on the league? But the funny thing is, though, if you guys did have Julio, those 1-point losses, you might have won. You could be looking at a team that only lost maybe 2 games right now. Like, so that we were laughing at you, but that was kind of funny. I agree, Tim. Patriots might just be a piece away. This doesn't do anything for you this year, but I really think my boy Michael Gallup, I think he's going to sign with the Patriots next year. And I think he's going to become a star with Mac Jones in New England because he's going to be a free agent and he's going to go to the highest bidder. But this year, with the Falcons coming up on a we're not even really talking about the Falcons. I personally don't think the Falcons have a chance. I don't know who do you think the Falcons have a chance? I don't think they have a chance. I think the Patriots are going to run away with this one. Bill Belichick, when you talk about benching Ramondre Stevenson, I mean, this is Bill Belichick. This is why he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. I think that by this point of the year, they're locked in. I don't think there's a team on that schedule that is just wants to play them. They're going to be a rough team every week.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's one of those things too where the Patriots throughout their time, it's I know that this is kind of a game you would look at and say, is this a trap game for the Patriots? Because you're coming off of a big win this past weekend against the Browns, which at the time we thought was going to be a kind of a measuring stick to see where they were at. Obviously, it wasn't competitive. And then you got a Thursday night game against the team that just got waxed by the Cowboys this past weekend. Here's the thing. Trap game, like the fact we're talking about it being a trap game means it's not a trap game for the Patriots. And generally when there are trap games, it's games that we didn't see coming like at all. Like I remember, and there have been few and far between, and not necessarily trap games, but just like I remember Mangini when he was on the Browns weirdly got the better of them in 2011, I think it was, and it was non-competitive. Obviously the Chiefs game in 2014. And things like that. But no, the fact that they have it rolling the way that they do right now, I would be absolutely stunned if the Patriots lost this game on Thursday. Because let's not forget too, I think one of the things that's been so like effective with this team is not necessarily Mac Jones has been great, but it's the defense so far this year that's really impressed me. Outside of that Cowboys game and Dak kind of being able to throw for 1,100 yards in that one game. They've shut down pretty much every quarterback. I would expect that to continue against Atlanta too. So we'll see.
I've been having a pretty good Thursday night football record. So yeah. I'm gonna throw it out right now. Pats are winning this game. I'm gonna tell you what's going on. Tim, I think you were spot on talking about the defense because that is the key. That Cowboys game was the only time that the Pats have given up more than 28 points in a game all season. They have been shutting teams down. You look at the Falcons, they've scored 30 a couple of times, but the last time they scored 30 points, Calvin Ridley scored a TD in that game. And we haven't seen Calvin Ridley in a little bit of time since. Since then, the Falcons are only averaging 14 points per game. Yeah. So you got the Falcons 14 points per game, and you got the Patriots who've only let up over 30 points one time. And for the last 5 games, including that horrific massacre against my beloved gangrene New York Jets, the Patriots are averaging in the last 5 games 35 points per game. I mean, this is not looking good. This is not looking good. My final score prediction is 31-17 New England. That is the Woody official Thursday night prediction.
So I didn't know you were a Jets fan. So what thoughts on Zach Wilson?
Oh, it's too soon, Tim. It's too soon.
Yeah.
Thoughts on whoa. I mean, talented kid. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to survive the New York environment. It's such a tough environment. The fact that a backup comes in and simply wins a game, right? Which is something that happens to teams all the time. Cooper Rush won a game, right? People win games. Geno Smith won a game. No one is saying we got to, bench Dak or anything, but we are so starved for wins that a backup wins a game, and we're saying get rid of Zach. I was hearing neighbors across the street saying, "Hey, we gotta, trade Zach for OBJ." What? So I mean, I feel bad for him because he's a child, and we clearly ruined Sam Darnold. The man is still seeing ghosts. I just don't want Zach to be another victim of this harsh, cruel world. Let's not forget his first quote when it was like, "Hey Zach, how's life going in New York?" His first quote was, "Hey, everybody's cutting me off, man. I'm trying to drive. I'm trying to get places. Everyone's cutting me off. This is an aggressive place. It's an aggressive place, and I just don't know if he is, if the kitchen is too hot. I don't know."
I just want to
Jones. Do you look at Mac Jones and say, "Man, I wish we took Mac at number 2"?
Oh my God, that's a question you can ask me all day. I actually don't think. I think Mac is in the best possible scenario. You literally put him like a puzzle piece in that, Josh McDaniels, the Belichick situation. You know what I'm saying? I think, the Mac Jones situation was a perfect fit for both sides. I can't plug and play Mac Jones in the New York Jets situation and say that they would be successful. I mean, that's like, because people say to me all the time, "Do I wish I took Josh Allen?" If Josh Allen was on the Jets back then, I don't know if you would be in the, because we're just so dysfunctional. We don't even have someone in the room who has NFL QB experience.
You're 100% right, by the way. Mac Jones would suck if he was on the Jets. And Josh Allen, I'll never forget watching him play the Pats the first time. I was like, this kid's going to be in the league a year and a half. I was like, this kid sucks. He was terrible. And credit to him, I got that really wrong because obviously he's a stud now, but the way he's developed over the last couple of years, you're right. Like the fact Sean McDermott and that whole system has kind of been in place and allowed him to develop. I'm not sure he probably would have developed the same way. I mean, God bless you for being a fan. That's tough. That's tough living. That's tough. Yeah.
What do you guys think about this? Because I truly believe if the Patriots had the number 1 pick in the draft, I think they still take Mac Jones. Well, I forgot. I'm forgetting about our boy, Trevor Lawrence. I think they would have took Trevor Lawrence. So, all right, my bad. If they had the number 2 pick, I think they still would have taken Mac Jones. And I'll tell you why. Because everybody fell in love with Zach Wilson's ability to throw it 80 yards downfield to a receiver that's not being covered, off his back foot. They say he can make all the throws. He's got this big arm. But Belichick cherishes one trait. Forget the 80-yard pass downfield. Can you throw a receiver open 8 yards on a route? Can you put the ball where it needs to be before the receiver breaks out of his route? And that is something Mac Jones proved he could do. So when everybody was saying that the Patriots are probably going to move up, they're going to move up, but everybody was sleeping on Mac Jones, I honestly thought the 49ers would draft him. But when they didn't, I knew he was going to fall to the Patriots, and it was going to be just what Bill Belichick ordered. I'm not about to call him a little mini Tom Brady or nothing, but he certainly has the skill set that Bill Belichick cherishes. If he was on the Jets, I'm not sure. Well, I don't really trust the developmental staff there, but I will say this: Mike White, when he came in, he threw 400 yards. I seen him throw a couple receivers open. He was actually his ball placement. You can tell that he's been around the league for a couple years and he's learned. I did not really see that from Zach yet, but Zach is still young, right? But while we're in New England, right, let's flip the table and let's take it to the court side. Let's talk about the Boston Celtics. One of the main things that a lot of people are really wondering right now, can Tatum and Brown coexist? I would love to hear your thoughts on it, Tim.
It's a great question. That's $1 million question. I think every Celtics fan is kind of waiting to see. I mean, in an ideal situation, you have those two guys and you're adding that third piece, and that's kind of what you're rolling with. And, in order to become a championship contender, because you look at the Eastern Conference right now, I mean, even if this team kind of peaks in terms of what they're capable of, you're looking at like a 5 seed, maybe a 4 seed. You need that one extra piece. There's been a lot of talk, like, would you trade Jalen for, especially this offseason? And there were unrealistic trades, like trades that weren't going to happen, but like a Damian Lillard or someone like that. And my biggest point with that is, number one, you're trading a guy that you have under contract that's young for a 31-year-old point guard. And now you're kind of in the same spot you were before. You've got 2 all-stars, and your ceiling is pretty much the same. So, you need to bring in that third superstar with this team to pair with those guys and then figure out if it's enough right now. But look, it hasn't gone the way that I think a lot of Celtics fans thought it was going to, especially starting 3 years ago when, you had Kyrie announcing that he was going to stay long-term with the Celtics. They're ever going to have me. Whoops, that didn't turn out. That didn't turn out too well. But you know what? In fairness, too, like 2 weeks after he made that announcement, it was pretty obvious he was going to leave. And then Gordon Hayward, going down 6 minutes into his Celtics career, was never the same player for the Boston Celtics after that. And, obviously he goes to Charlotte on that monster contract. And then Al Horford walked out the door. I know he's back this year, but, you were building towards this thing. And, we talked about it so much, but one of the great things about that Celtics rebuild was they were able to do it 2 different ways, because they had those picks and they were drafting high. You're adding premier talent at the top of the draft while also bringing in max free agents and acquiring guys through trade with Kyrie. Like, all 3 ways they were doing it, which you really can't do in the NBA. So it was the plan worked to perfection until it didn't. And it certainly has gone off the rails over the last couple of years. And now Brad Stevens has a lot of hard decisions to make, because at some point he's going to have to pull the trigger and try to flip some guys. And whether that's Marcus Smart, once he's eligible to actually get traded this year, or some other pieces, or if he decides that, maybe Jalen or Tatum, which I can't see them ever making that move, being the guy that they end up flipping for someone else.
Who do you value more out of the 2 players?
It's a great question, and honestly, it depends on what day you ask me. I go back and forth.
Really? Okay.
Because like a week ago, I would have told you it was Jalen. I think the way that he's progressed offensively, I never saw coming. I thought that he always had the potential to be an all-star, and obviously he was last year. Should have been 2 years ago too. But offensively this year too, just continues to take those steps. But how effortless Tatum can score the basketball at times, like I don't think you can find that. I don't think you can find it. And
he's a volume. He doesn't
have a killer. First of all, he's a Duke guy, so not surprising that he doesn't have a killer instinct. And then he's that's not surprising. But I just, that from a talent perspective, it's hard to overlook what he's capable of. So I think that Jalen has more of a, I don't want to say winning attitude, but a guy that you want to go to war with more consistently. I think it's probably Jaylen Brown. But I'm a sucker for talent. That's why I'd get fired within 2 years of the NBA, because I was all this underperforming, super talented guys, and we'd go 500 and I'd be blown out in a year and a half.
Anthony Bennett still got it. You got to believe.
Anthony Bennett guy. I was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I agree though with the mindset thing though. With like Jaylen Brown, like I feel like he's a dog. He has a dog mentality. Yeah. Been in the league every year. Right, he's up in points. He's up in field goal percentage. This is someone that we didn't know was going to be the type of scorer, the type of dual threat that he is.
I wanted Chris Dunn. I wanted Chris Dunn in the draft. That's to tell you how good of an evaluator I am. I was like, I wanted Chris Dunn or I wanted Jamal Murray, and
we had him for
Jamal Murray. I mean, Jamal Murray would have been great. And actually, Jamal Murray probably would have fit better with Tatum. I think their problem, and I love them both. I really do. I will say Tatum's a little bit more durable, and he's younger. So that's from that standpoint. I'd probably, I had to choose one. Probably go Tatum. But here's my thing about them. And when Marcus Smart called them out, Marcus Smart pretty much said, "Hey, we got these young guys. They can do a lot." But they got to learn to trust each other, trust, their teammates. And, they're both averaging, about, 3 assists a piece. And, no one's saying, hey, they got to be Chris Paul. But, you look at someone like Kevin Durant, who's played at the highest level of this league. That man, he's averaging no less than 5 assists, year in, year out. I mean, this is someone who is surprisingly, to a novice, to a layperson, you think of Kevin Durant as one of the best scorers of all time, but this is someone who's also unselfish. I think that is the area of their game that these two need to both improve on. Unselfishness, passing that ball around. And if they trust each other as much as they trust themselves, I mean, you guys will be cooking. You guys will be cooking. You might not even need that third piece.
I'll say this. All that sounded really good. I'll tell you what. If you watch Marcus Smart shoot on a daily basis, you wouldn't pass the ball either. That guy.
I mean, me and Tim watch a lot of games, and the amount of 0 for 7s that he'll throw up there, and it's like he's got the mentality like I did in high school when I was like, that's all right, the next 3 are going in. I'm going to shoot 50%. I missed my first 3. I just got to knock down the next 3. It's fine. I'll be great. A law of averages, right? It's not working out so well, but I just want to say that this isn't such a hot take, but I think Tatum is overrated. We watch these games and he is a volume scorer, right? He's putting up 20 to 30 shots a game. Yes, you better average 20 points if you're going to put up that. I mean, and here's what I want to point out. Tatum is averaging this year the most field goal attempts, the most 3-point attempts per game average, and making the least, his career lows. So you're going the opposite way of where you want to, right? You're becoming less efficient and just throwing up more junk. I mean, time and time again, as a Celtics fan, and Tim can probably cope with me here. When Tatum gets the ball in the last minute, goes back to that killer instinct, I am so frustrated by his decision-making, or whether Udoka's calling a play or not, I don't know, because Tatum's just basically taking the ball, trying to go ISO, and then not even going strong to the hoop. I mean, he's almost 7 feet tall. He's 6'10". Just like, you should be able to take it to the hole on guys, try and get fouled. He's taking 30-foot fadeaways to try and win games, and the ones that he's making are bank shots like that happen to fall. And like, he's soft. I want a guy like Brown, he's gonna get hurt because he's going balls to the wall. He's not trying these finger rolls at 6'9", 6'10", in the lane. That's not the killer instinct that you need to go. That's not going to make guys want to run through a wall for you. So I don't think he has that leadership quality. If I'm Brad Stevens, and this is never happening, but I'm trying to get a king's ransom for Tatum while his stock is the highest it will ever be, and you go get somebody who's going to fit Brown and fit the rest of this roster and build around that.
You think his stock is as high as it'll ever be right now at 23 years old?
I'll take that back, because his stock could be higher in the future, right? But I don't think I mean, his stock is very high right now. Yes. People in the NBA will pay a king's ransom for his talent right now. So you acquire that. And I don't mean for draft picks. You go get a Dame to play with Brown, okay? Because Dame will be a better player with Brown.
I got a question for you, CJ. I'm a Phoenix Suns fan, right? I would love to see Tatum play with Chris Paul, because that's what he needs. He needs a Chris Paul, right? Somebody to keep him in check, because he's doing way too much, just like you guys said. Would you take DeAndre Ayton in the first pick for Jason Tatum?
No.
All right. No. If you'd have said yeah, I'd have been like, wow.
Good try.
Would you take that?
I thought you were going to say, I was like, all right.
Definitely not Devin Booker.
Give me Booker and I'll give you Tatum. That's fine. I'll do that all day.
But I agree with you guys.
Brown? I feel like that's weird.
Nah, that is yeah, I don't even know if that duo. You probably had the same situation all over again, because Devin Booker became a completely different player with Chris Paul there, and I think that's what I'm saying about Jason Tatum, right? Jason Tatum, when he can just do his own thing, he needs leadership, and that's what the Celtics need to give him. So if you guys had to trade one, You can probably get a king's ransom for Jason Tatum, but I agree with the mindset and the mentality of Jaylen Brown. I don't know if I'd be willing to sacrifice that, man. Jaylen goes hard, and he's definitely a good player to have on the team.
He does. He is, and you're right about the mindset being important. But when you look at kind of building the team out, you have to keep in mind too that you need to make sure that you have a roster that other superstars want to go to, right? And so
Right.
you've got a guy like Tatum that was on the Olympic team that kind of has that cachet around the rest of the league. Jalen's an all-star, but if you ship Tatum out and you're building around Jalen and whoever you bring in with Tatum, which you're never going to get a dollar for dollar value when you're giving up a guy like Jason Tatum, right? It just doesn't happen like that in the NBA. So, but it's one of those situations too. CJ talked about it where, yeah, he's absolutely soft. That's been the issue with the Celtics over the last 2 years. It's a soft team in general. And if you were going to come to me and say, hey, in 2 years, one of these two guys is going to ask to be traded from the Boston Celtics, it's Jason Tatum. I will not be stunned in a couple of years if Tatum says, I want out of Boston. I would be floored if Jaylen Brown said that. And that's something that I think Brad Stevens has to keep in mind too when he's building this team moving forward is how do I keep Jason Tatum happy and wanting to be in Boston? He's friends with Kyrie Irving. I don't know if you guys picked up on this. Kyrie, not the biggest Boston guy. So, it's something that you absolutely have to keep in mind if you're the Boston Celtics. How do we keep these guys happy and wanting to stay here long term? Because it's interesting. Prior to Kyrie, you'll go across the whole landscape of New England sports and all these teams. Generally, guys didn't leave here unless the teams were like, yeah, we're all set. Thanks. Kyrie was the first guy that was like, actually, I'm good. You go back to Kevin Garnett. He didn't want to come to Boston originally, then falls in love with it, right? And Kyrie was the first guy. And then Horford's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go take this monster deal in Philly, even though I don't fit at all. And then Hayward walks out the door. It's like, well, I don't know if I can swear on this, but F us. This sucks. And so, yeah, I think now that precedent's been set, and you have to be really careful about making sure that these guys want to be in a Boston Celtics uniform long term.
T-Mac, you the man. We thank you for censoring that, man, because you didn't have to. You could have just but we do want to keep this PG-13. So, yes, thank you for that. And very good point about if the Celtics were actually to trade Jason Tatum, what would that say to the rest of the league? And I agree with your assessment on Jason Tatum and his character. I think he's a great person, but I do think that he's fully capable of requesting a trade out of Boston, and that is not something that has traditionally happened.
I'll be so mad.
So let's get to our last segment of the night, right? And let's talk about what's saucy in the sports world. We talking about wings and things. We got 3 different categories: mild, medium, and hot, right? Let's start off with mild, right? I'll tell you something that's mild in the sports world right now, right? And I'm talking like if you're going to order some wings and you get the sweet barbecue, not even the tangy barbecue, the sweet barbecue, right? That's somebody that ain't about that life. And the rookies of this year, it's pretty weak sauce. We talk about Cade Cunningham. Cade is struggling. Every player that was drafted in the lottery outside of one, Scotty Barnes, is shooting less than 50%. And the top 2 picks, Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green, are shooting 36%. They are not playing well. Jalen Green gets a lot of recognition because he was stone cold. In high school, he went to the G League. He played well. He had some moments where he hit some big shots, but he's not consistent. And again, I understand he's just a rookie. Cade Cunningham was compared to Luka Doncic out of Oklahoma State. Luka. So he comes to the league. He's on Detroit. He's the number 1 pick. And yeah, you don't have to come in and you don't have to be like LeBron James or some of the other more notable number 1 overall picks. But he is not playing well at all. Last year, we were treated to LaMelo Ball. LaMelo was coming off the bench. And by this point in the season, we're talking like, between those first 10 to 15 games, we're like, hey, why is he not starting? Because he was contributing at a high level. Anthony Edwards was getting buckets. Cade Cunningham, it's disrespectful to Luka Doncic that he was even compared to him based on how he's playing right now. So I just want to say Scotty Barnes is probably my favorite rookie out in Toronto right now. He's got a lot of game. No one's averaging over 17 points a game, but I don't think Scotty needs to do that. But I would say mild sauce, weak sauce, definitely the 2021-2022 NBA rookie class. Trash.
Here's some mild sauce for you. How about some Lakers? That Lakers sauce is so mild, it might even be some Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue. Like these guys, I wrote down that they remind me so much of the Celtics Nets trade, where the Nets just got awesome lineup that was just 4 years too old for and the Lakers just, I don't know if all those guys are going to be on the floor together at the same time this year, and B, when they are, how much time is it going to take them to figure it out with that crew, right? Like it's not an easy, clean, big three of the Celtics. Everybody's got their role type mesh, right? I mean, they've got an odd conglomerate of talent, and I do mean talent. They're good. They're old, but this hodgepodge is not working out. And without LeBron, this team's floundering. I mean, there's no leadership with all of these old vets on that team. There's no leadership. It's like there's too many chefs in the kitchen, right? I mean, AD is not the guy. Like he is supposed to be a dominant force, and he is supposed to. LA is expecting him to take the reins when LeBron is done and be the guy to take the torch and continue the LA dynasty. He's not showing me dominance, right? Like when I'm watching him play, he's not like that college guy who was averaging 7 blocks a game and just manhandling guys. He's another guy that I go back to, and I hate to continue to use the word soft, but he reminds me, him and Tatum seem like a very similar breed. They don't have that killer hunter mentality to go after him, and when they do sink a game winner, it's going to be from 30 feet out.
And they both love Kobe.
They don't play like him. They don't have this like Kobe did.
Well, I got some mild sauce. I got some mild sauce for you. I'm not going too far from where you were just at, CJ. But one of the biggest daggers, right, is when wings look the part, right? Like if you order hot wings, they're supposed to look a certain way. And when you smell them, right, it should burn your nose, like just burn your nose up, right? Like that's how you know the wings are hot, right? So if you order wings, they look the part, and you smell, and your nose hairs are perfectly fine. It's like, what? Well, let me give it the benefit of the doubt. Bite in. Ooh, these are mild, sir. We got the wrong order, right? Right. That is exactly what my experience was watching the LA Rams get smacked down by the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, that first whiff was a Tennessee Titans game. It's like, oh, okay, well, they didn't have Von Miller. Now, while we were waiting for Von Miller, they added Odell. So now we are expecting, these wings are supposed to be burning, and instead they got burned. This was oh my gosh, this was extra super duper mild. Both of the new acquisitions struggled in their debut. Horrific performance for the LA Rams.
So I'll be honest with you. I totally didn't understand what we were doing for this segment. So
it's all good, Tim.
I don't have a real job. So you know what? We're going to pivot and we're going to figure it out anyways.
My man.
I'm going to go with the Chiefs. And I know that they've won 3 in a row, but you actually look at who they beat. It was the Giants. It was the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. And then it was the Raiders. I don't know if you guys have picked up on this, but the Raiders have a few things going on off the field right now. So I actually cannot wait for this week's matchup against your Cowboys, Will, because I think this is going to be a real measuring stick. And I don't think that Kansas City has this thing figured out. I know that they just put up a ton of points against the Raiders, but it still feels like this team is just missing something this year. Obviously, the Super Bowl slump, if you're not the Patriots, is a real thing. And so I'm fascinated to see what happens this week because I'll be honest with you, the Cowboys, I would say that they're favorites, but you look at that NFC. I mean, the NFC is a wagon this year. There's like legit 5 teams that I would not be surprised with if they came out. They came out of that conference. But this is a real measuring stick game for the Chiefs, and I'm not buying in, despite the fact that they've won 3 in a row.
See, man, I appreciate that. And you know why? Because, like, as a Cowboys fan, I'm scared, right? And this was so organically done that my medium sauce, if we want to talk about what's a little medium with the wings right now, the Kansas City Chiefs were that regular buffalo sauce. And I'll tell you why I put them as medium. I buy what you said about them being mild, right? The fanboy in me is kind of scared to agree because I don't want to go. I'm a homer, but I try to not be an over-the-top homer where, like, we're going 16-0 every week, right? But the Chiefs have been struggling every week, and this team has been a juggernaut for the past couple years. And you just feel like they're going to get it together. And who do teams usually get it together against? The Cowboys, right? It's just like it happens to us, man. And they're 6-4 now. They're actually at the top of their division after trailing in it all season long. That division is crumbling apart, but it's actually some parity there. But now you got the Cowboys. And just like you said, Tim, their wins have not been impressive. Well, this win, if they were to get it, let me clarify, would be impressive. So I feel like they really have a lot to play for this week. This is one of my more notable matchups, not just because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I feel like the reason why I'm putting them in that medium category is because despite their struggles, they're 6-4. And, they really have a big game in front of them. And this is like one of those measuring sticks, just like you said, where we really find out who they are. Man, I do not want to lose to the Chiefs because that would be a hard pill for the Cowboys to swallow. The Cowboys need to prove themselves and actually win this game too. But this game, man, I'm a little afraid of it. I'm not going to lie. So the Chiefs were my medium pick.
All right. My medium pick.
For the rest of this segment, then, if that was the medium, I got nothing left. So, yeah. Well,
no, it's all good. It's all good. That was fire. That was your weak sauce pick, but it was fire, though. Right?
Yeah, well, I've been trying to top that.
Fire, so.
Yeah.
Tim's gonna come up with a hot take. I know it. But no, my medium sauce is we're gonna stay in the NFL world here, and I want to go with the New England Patriots, and I just had a hot, and this was my addition of a take, right? I think the Pats are going to advance beyond the wild card game. Not only do I think they're going to get in the wild card game, I think they're going to advance in the wild card game because if you look at their opponents, there's going to be there's a lot of parity, just like Will said. We really can't line up the stakes with who they're going to end up playing, and that just goes to show it's anybody's. And I think they're really, we discussed it earlier in the show, they've really turned a corner right now, both on offense and on defense. And as the weeks progress, I think Mac Jones is getting better. My hot take is this team is actually going to win a playoff game. So there we go. That's my medium sauce for you.
Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, with Will's medium sauce, I mean, he was talking about one team, but that was pretty much another Cowboys love letter. Yeah. CJ, sticking at home with, the Pats for his medium sauce. My name is James Woody, and for my medium sauce, I'm talking about go New York, go New York, go the New York Knicks, the Bronx Boogie Down Boys, because they are also 6-4, but I feel like they could be a lot better. I mean, here's a stat that really, almost like boggles my mind, because their starting 5 has the absolute worst plus minus in the entire NBA. But their bench has the second best plus minus in the NBA. I was actually in Charlotte. You guys saw the Instagrams. I was in Charlotte taking videos of the game, trying to, get my cred up as a photographer. And, they were up 20 points in that game, right? But as soon as, Julius Randle came back in, he was minus 30 that game. Obi Toppin has been playing amazing now that he is actually comfortable being on an NBA court, with grown men. I think he was scared last year. Now he's comfortable. I mean, this is a really good team. They're clearly really deep, right? When you look at those bench numbers, but they're not quite elite. They're definitely not terrible. They are medium sauce. Hopefully Tibbs can change up the lineup or something and kind of get them to that next level, put some extra spice on it. But as of right now, New York Knicks, they medium sauce.
Wow, that's actually a good spot on pick. I would say they're pretty medium sauce too, right? With the potential to maybe be some hot sauce by the end of the year. But speaking of hot sauce, I'm talking, whether it's a hot take or a hot performance, what is your hot sauce flavor of the week? And I'll just start it off by just name dropping one person, right? This dude is ghost pepper hot. We talking about Steph Curry, baby. The chef. Look, it don't get much hotter. I'm going to do hot and do a hot take where the way he's playing right now, he might get his first NBA Finals MVP. Listen, we were doing this sportscast while they were doing work against the Brooklyn Nets, right? But if you look at that box score real quick, if you just go look at the box score, the chef was 9 for 14 from three. I was watching the game before we came on, and he had hit 4 straight threes. He was just cooking out there, right? 9 for 14. Those threes changed the game. You're talking Steph could put up 12 points in a matter of 40 game seconds, right? That can push a 2-point lead to 14 points. That could erase a double-digit deficit. His shooting is beyond belief. And in a few weeks, he's going to take Ray Allen's record down. I think he came into the game 78 behind. He's 9 threes tonight. Man, Chef is cooking. My man is ghost pepper fire hot right now. That's the type of wing where you take one bite and you question whether you're going to continue to eat them after that.
All right. Well, hey, I got one for you. That's now here's a man who loves to eat a lot of wings. This man is Zion Williamson. And he is my bust, right? Because the man is looking like Tractor Trailer. If you guys remember him from back in the day.
Yes.
He's going to start playing like Jared Sullinger soon. Because this man, right? Otherworldly talent, plays above the rim. He's a mammoth. He came into the league at 18, looking like a absolute linebacker. Where are you? Where are you? You're busting out of your shoes. You're busting out of your shorts. You're busting out of your jersey. You got 3 chins. He made his bag and he's eating it. Yeah, I got him labeled as a bust. And not because he's not going to put up stats when he actually does play, but he is not going to keep himself healthy enough to play because he is undersized, power forward, whose game is supposed to be action and above the rim and throw it down on guys and muscle them. You're not on the court. You are barely drinking age at this point, and we're already going through this. Come on. That's my hot and spicy Zion being a bust.
Man, tough place to live for Zion. There's a lot of food out there.
For real.
I think he's just not motivated with that horrendous franchise. As soon as he goes somewhere else, he's going to have a transformation like James Harden, right? James Harden, he was looking a little, thick. And as soon as he went to Brooklyn with his boys, they were out here, killing the game. I think that's exactly what we're going to see with Zion. Hopefully it's a New York Knicks uniform that he does that in, but we'll see. There's a saying out there. I'm sure somebody's heard it. I don't want to say all 3 of you have heard it, but I feel like somebody's heard it. Have you guys heard the saying that one man's trash is another man's treasure?
Yep.
Of course.
Okay, all right. Just making sure. Well, in this scenario, one man's medium can be another man's mild, and some other man's hot. because my hot is actually Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. The boy threw for over 400 yards and 5 TDs. No one was putting respect. As a matter of fact, there was so much disrespect on this man's name. People were saying, has he been figured out? Oh my gosh, is he a bust now? Like, what? Just because he wasn't playing at the Herculean numbers of before, right? Those Madden video game numbers of before, just because he wasn't doing that. And the Chiefs defense was so atrocious. They were disrespecting this man. So Patrick just brushed it all off. And he said, you know what? It's time to get hot, baby. 400 yards, 5 TDs. The man is back. And I would be shaking in my cowboy boots. If you know what I mean.
We need him to cool off before this weekend.
Timmy, you got any sizzling takes for us?
I mean, I could throw out like a bunch of stuff that isn't going to happen. We'll go Patriots Bucks Super Bowl. You can book it right now.
Ooh, Patriot Bucks Super Bowl.
I love the storyline.
Listen, that would be a storyline. That would be.
Yeah.
If that happened, the Patriots would win.
There's some stuff you could probably talk about leading up to that Super Bowl, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a busy job at all, Tim.
Yeah. No, it'd be good. I appreciate that. Fun fact about Obi Toppin, by the way, he dunked the basketball in my face 2 years ago at URI when he was on.
Wow.
That was good.
Really?
Athlete. Yeah. Yeah. Sin baseline, windmill, just yammed it in my face. I was like, all right, that's great. Thanks, Obi.
Tim doesn't like to brag, but Tim was a collegiate basketball player too at the great Roger Williams University. So
yeah, until they told me to stop playing because I wasn't good. So there you go. Yeah.
Well, hey, that certainly confirms you did say you like to play your game above the rim like T-Mac, and you got to be above the rim to get dunked on in your face, right? And I mean, unless he was doing one of these, but hopefully not.
It was the second one, but the first one sounded better, so I appreciate it.
I won't tell anyone.
Yeah. Awesome, though. Awesome. Well, Tim, listen, man, we certainly appreciate you joining us on this Sportscast. We appreciate you sharing your sports expertise as a fan and as a professional. And thank you for breaking it on down and being side to side with your boys here.
No, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it, and would love to do it again sometime. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely line that up, man. We got to have you on the show again. It just feels natural, man. So we thank you taking time out of your day. And ladies and gentlemen, this was our first guest. We want you to be our next guest, you passionate sports fans. That's it for today's Side to Side Sportscast. Follow us at S2S Sportscast all over your Instagram, your Twitters. Hit the website, www.side2sidesports.com. Fill out the guest request. We would love to see you on the show. But until then, we out. Good night, everybody.